Hey, this is Rubber Cheese. Today I'm going to do a video demo and walkthrough and a bit of a review on the ecoBee3 Lite Smart Thermostat. The box looks just like this, and it's pretty similar to the ecoBee3 but with a few less features, which has now been replaced by the ecoBee4, which also adds Amazon Alexa voice built into it. So prior to getting this thermostat, I've been using a Honeywell Lyric T5 thermostat. I did a pretty in-depth review on that and I got a lot of views, so I thought something similar might be useful for this. The main reason that I changed thermostats is that with this Honeywell, I was having a lot of network disconnect issues. And then I got just a really good deal on the ecoBee, so I thought, I really need to try it out. So my house was built in the mid-80s and I have the original mid-efficiency furnace and AC unit. I do have a C-wire, so there was really no issue installing that. ecoBee includes this power extender kit. So if you don't have a C-wire but you have the proper wires you need, you can hook this into your furnace and then use your existing 4 wires running up to the thermostat and still have the ability to manually turn your fan on and off even without a C-wire. With the Honeywell, you could also install it without a C-wire, but you had no manual control of the fan. So this is kind of nice to have this, even though I would expect most users won't have to actually use it. So after installation, just like most smart thermostats, I had to enter my Wi-Fi network information and got everything all initialized. Then put the ecoBee app on my phone, which is right here, which is really the main way that we control it. So I'm going to spend a lot of time going through the app, just because before I got my previous thermostat, nobody else had, and I was kind of curious about what the functionality was. So as you can see, the display is basically the same between the app and the thermostat itself. It's showing that it's in cooling mode. The inside humidity is 56%. The current inside temperature is 79 degrees, and the set point is 92 degrees right now. Down here is essentially the override status. I've got the fan on right now, and I have it set to hold indefinitely. So if we want to change the heating cooling type, which you almost never do, just click that. You've got heat, cool, or auto switch, or off. I'm just going to cancel the set point and it'll resume my schedule. So right now it's showing as away, and that's why the set point's so high at 92 degrees. So it can easily be adjusted up and down, and I'm going to bring it down to maybe 73. And as soon as I do that, it pops up with a dialog box asking how long I want to hold this new temperature for. So I'm given the choices of 2 or 4 hours until the next scheduled set point, or until I change it. When I'm going through thermostat features, we can actually change this default. This is not normally what happens. Unless you change the settings, I believe it by default says until I change it. So let's just select that. Let's get the AC on, it's kind of warm in here. So beyond that, we can click this button down here to see what the current weather is, which is kind of handy if you're out of town, maybe at the cottage or something, and you want to see what it's like at home. And it's got a few days forecast. Bottom right are settings. So this allows you to manually force a different setting. You can also turn on the fan or just leave it on auto. So obviously on is on all the time, or auto is on as required. There's also something here showing auto 0 minutes an hour. There's a setting on the thermostat where you can set a minimum runtime per hour. So if you want to make sure that it's running for, let's say, 10 minutes an hour just to keep the air from totally getting stagnant, you have that ability. Then at the bottom is the equipment running now, and as you can see, it's showing that the air conditioner's on. It's a single stage air conditioner, so it's running, and also the central fan is on as well. So I'm gonna go back, and then we can go into some settings. So under system, you can't really control a whole lot from the app itself. We already went through this, just another way to get to the same menu. And this is what I was mentioning before, where you can change the minimum fan runtime. So again, I've got mine set at 0 minutes per hour, but you can set it in 5-minute increments as you see fit. So next is sensors here. ecoBee has sensors that you can buy. It's a 2-pack for around $90 Canadian, and they can be placed in rooms that you tend to use. Each sensor has a temperature sensor and a occupancy sensor. And the way the system works is that for all rooms that the thermostat knows are occupied, it'll average a temperature in those rooms and then apply the set point to those rooms. So practically what that might mean is in the evening when it notices a lot of occupancy upstairs, if your thermostat's on the main floor, what you might find is the main floor being overcooled in order to get those upper rooms to the set point. So for me, I don't need it. I know that upstairs is always going to be a couple degrees warmer than it is down here. So I don't really see the value in those, but it is an option. Next is schedule. So ecoBee allows you to schedule every single day. Can be a little bit different, and it's easy to copy the schedule to a different day. And for each of those days, there's 3 different comfort settings. Now, you can't customize or you can't create additional comfort settings, so you've always only got 3. You've got home, away, and sleep. So within each of those, you can go in and centrally change it. So you can select the desired heat, desired cool, and the fan mode in each of those settings. So in the summer, I have my desired cool set to 92 degrees. So basically what that means is the air conditioning's never running unless I manually turn it on. And when I'm in the home mode, it's going to be running the fan all the time by default. You can also select which sensors it pays attention to. Now I've only got the 1 sensor built into the thermostat, but you could also have more in other rooms if you want. That way you can also tell it to ignore sensors in rooms that you might be in and out of, but not actually occupying. So back to the schedule. Pretty easy to set up. My main complaint with the schedule is that it's not easy to force the fan to run. The only way to do it is to force it to run in the actual schedule type. And that's why my schedules kind of don't make sense now. Like it shows that I'm home between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, and that's the only time. The only reason for that is I want the fan to run during that time because I got a bathroom which does not have an exhaust fan. So I want the central fan to be running just to blow that humid air out of the bathroom. So there's not really a nice way of doing that with the ecoBee3, unfortunately. That's my main complaint with it. The other option that you have with the ecoBee is geofencing. So you can set the ecoBee so that when you're within any radius you want of your house, you can force it into a different set point. So if you had this set up normally, and you say normally work between, let's say 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock, if you had the radius set between your workplace and your home, as soon as you cross that border, you can force it into, let's say, home mode so that it gets the temperature of your house down by the time you get home. Even if you leave work early at, let's say, 2 o'clock or something, it'll notice when you pass that threshold and it'll get your temperature on its way to what you want. There is another option where you can have the thermostat learn how long it takes to heat and cool your house, so that rather than beginning to heat or cool at the set points, you can have it so your house is actually at the proper temperature at those times. Again, I don't really think that matters because I have a pretty good idea of how long it takes to heat and cool the house, so I kind of do that myself. it makes it a little bit more predictable for when your furnace or air conditioner will be running, especially if you're on time of use and you really care. You don't want your AC running before 7 o'clock p.m., let's say. You've also got some reminder settings that you can make. So you've got, you can make it remind you when you've got certain things coming up. So you can have it remind you about the furnace filter. You can do that based on the runtime hours or the number of months. Similar to the UV lamp, the HVAC maintenance reminder is only based on calendar months. You can't do it based on runtime. There's also some alerts, so you can be alerted if your house has high or low humidity, or if the or if the temperature goes below a certain amount. So I have that set below my lowest ever set point in the winter. Basically, I know if my house gets to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, it means that there's a problem with my furnace. And so even if I'm not around, hopefully I can contact someone and get that looked at before there's any risk of freezing. You can also have a high temperature alert sent. I don't really know what the point of that is, but I have it set for the highest that my thermostat would ever be set to. So that's about it for the app. It's really easy to use. It works well, but there are a few other features that are on the thermostat itself. So I'm going to go over those now as well. So these buttons are all the same as on the app. So this is the main thing under System. Oh, sorry, no, it's not. It's under Settings. So what's really cool about this, sorry, actually, we'll go through a couple others. You can change the temperature, Fahrenheit or Celsius. You can change what is displayed as far as your heat settings. So basically, you can make it so that once it's been set, your kids can't set it to some crazy high temperature. They can't set it to, let's say, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Similar with cooling, you can make it so that it's not going to be set unrealistically or unreasonably low. You can change just a few general settings, screen brightness, standby, which is basically how long until it goes into a standby mode, obviously. This is the hold action, so you can set the default when you override the temperature setting. Do you want it to last for 2 hours, 4 hours, until the next scheduled activity, until you change it, or decide at the time of change? So I leave it on this one because that way on the app it's going to pop up and offer me these options. If you set any of these other options, the app won't give you a choice at all. So that's not very convenient if you're not home. The heating smart recovery is the thing which will get the temperature to your set point by the time that you've selected. Again, I don't really use that. I don't see really what the point of it is. Installation settings allows you to configure your equipment. And what I really like about this thermostat that I didn't have on my Honeywell are thresholds. So it allows you to prevent your AC from kicking on when it's really cold out. It allows you to set a minimum cycle time for your compressor and for your heating. So the idea is that way you're not cycling your equipment as much as you might otherwise. It allows you to set minimum heat or cooling time so that, let's say the furnace kicks on, it's not going to kick on and kick off after a minute. It's going to wait, it's going to run for at least 5 minutes before kicking off. You can also set the maximum temperature differentials, which will allow it so that, let's say that we're set at 72 degrees. If we had it set at 0.5, as soon as it got half a degree half a degree off from your set point, it'll kick on. I've got mine set to 1 degree, just so that, again, it's going to cycle less than it otherwise would. That's a pretty cool feature that my Honeywell didn't have. and my old dumb thermostat obviously didn't either. So there's a few other minor settings like that, but that's pretty much it. All right, so as far as the review part of this is gonna go, I really like the basic capabilities. I love being able to remotely change the temperature on my thermostat from any room in the house or from outside of the house. You know, it was a really hot, long weekend. We're up at the cottage. I was able to turn on the air conditioning before even leaving the cottage, so that the house was down to an acceptable temperature by the time we got back. That's really cool, and there's not really any way of doing that without a smart thermostat. It's also really handy to be able to control your thermostat from anywhere in the house, which is sort of a luxury that I really appreciate now. I also really like the adjustable threshold settings on this to prevent wear and tear on the equipment, especially since I have an old mid-efficiency furnace and there's a lot of heat loss at startup and cool down. The fewer of those cycles I can have, the less gas that I waste. So the only thing I really don't like about this thermostat is the fact that there's only 3 schedules and no way of creating additional ones. That's really the only complaint that I have. So what about comparing it to my old Honeywell T5, which cost about half as much at normal retail pricing? This is usually around $100 Canadian, and this is typically around 200 Canadian. So overall, I mean, they have the same general functionality, but the ecoBee gives a lot more flexibility as far as the fine settings, like I kind of showed you. And I found that the app is much better, and I don't think I've experienced any disconnects the whole time I've been using it. So for me, I think this ecoBee justifies the higher price, even if you're buying it at retail pricing. But I think honestly most people would be happy with the cheaper Honeywell Lyric T5. This is the Lite version, ecoBee3 Lite. So what that's missing are room sensors included, although an update means that this actually does support the use of the room sensors like I mentioned earlier. It doesn't come with any in the box, whereas the non-Lite versions do. Also, the non-Lite version supports some advanced equipment such as humidifiers and ventilators. And then I'd mentioned earlier that the ecoBee4 also adds Amazon Alexa voice support. So overall, this is a really good thermostat. I've tried the main competitors, the Honeywell Lyric T5, and I've also tried the Nest and Nest E at my friends' houses. I really think that I really prefer how the ecoBee3 works. And I think that the ecoBee3 Lite is probably the best value of all of them when you're looking at functionality and pricing. So overall, I would strongly recommend it to pretty much anybody. The only thing is, if you have a humidifier or ventilator, you may need to buy the ecoBee3 or ecoBee4 in order to properly support those features. So I hope you enjoyed my review. If you have any other questions that I haven't answered properly, put a message in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks.